Thank you for tuning in to a special mock draft that I am doing today with the guys from the Footballguys college football show, Jeff Bell, Christian Williams, and Kevin Coleman. We got a little college football show and a launchpad collaboration coming at you today. I haven't done any rookie analysis yet, so my job here is simply to let these guys run the show and talk about these rookies that are coming into the 2023 class. Gentlemen, real quickly, before we jump into this, we're going to have a couple minutes to talk about each of these picks as we get through. But before we do that, Jeff, why don't you go ahead and let everyone know where they can find you on social media if they aren't following you already?
You can find me at For Whom J Bell Tolls on Twitter, but actually you should be following Christian because Christian needs more followers. So C Williams NFL, go ahead and follow Christian, and you don't need to follow me. It's okay.
Yeah, Christian is a great follow. So Christian, let everyone know where they can find you, or maybe if you want to use this opportunity to plug Jeff.
Yeah. Well, I'm at C Williams NFL. Thank you, Jeff. You guys also you can follow me there, but Jeff is the best of the Twitter users here. I think he has mastered Twitter, and he does a great job there. But you can follow me at C Williams NFL if you so choose.
And Kevin, DuBois_22. Let everyone know where they can find you as well.
Yeah, you can follow me at DuBois_22. And don't follow anybody else on the screen. Like, just follow me. That's what you need to do.
I like this. Everybody is trying to build each other up, and then Kevin is like, no, me, I'm the guy you should be following. But the reason we have these fantastic gentlemen joining us today is they have been hard at work for, I don't even want to say how long you guys have been working on this, probably since before the college football season even kicked off. You guys have been watching every single game, learning everything you can about these prospects, getting a head start on everybody else in the industry. You guys released an amazing rookie guide that I just cannot talk about enough. I've been hyping this up on the launch pad. I've been sending it out everywhere I can. You guys absolutely knocked it out of the park. 120 prospects already. We're looking at everything from scheme analysis, measurables, scouting reports. I mean, you guys absolutely crushed this. So there is a link in the description below on YouTube where you can find that. It is footballguys.com/rookie guide. Best part about it is it's free. So be sure to check that out. What we're going to be doing today, actually, as we're talking about these picks, is I'll be showing you some snippets from the rookie guide so you can see exactly what it looks like and all of the information on there. But let's just go ahead and dive right in with the first pick here. Jeff Bell, you are on the clock. Who are you taking with the 101?
Well, I think it'd be canceled if I weren't anywhere else but Bijan Robinson. So we're going to go ahead and start it off. We're going to take Bijan Robinson. I think he has to be the consensus top pick right now, the way that you're looking at drafts. And as you can see on the screen here, the beautiful page from the Footballguys rookie guide. And that tells you everything you need to know about Bijan Robinson. We've got scouting reports. We've got strengths, weaknesses. We've got ideal fits. We've got ground projection. We will have combine numbers. We have positions in SuperFlex, one quarterback, and as you can see, he's the 101 across the board.
Yep. Got everything there. So is there anything else that you guys want to add on Bijan Robinson, or is this kind of the chalky pick? We know who's going 101. Now, I just want to throw it out there really quickly because I think a lot of people are struggling to wrap their minds around why a running back is going 101 in Superflex leagues when we're looking at a lot of guys that are probably going to be getting top 5 draft capital at the quarterback position. So what do you want to step in and talk about why we're taking Bijan Robinson ahead of some of these quarterbacks?
So on last night's tiers episode of the college football show, we tiered it out and we talked about who would be in number 1 tiers. And I think Bijan Robinson is comfortably in that elite tier, and those other quarterbacks kind of have questions about him. And that's really where it comes down to. But I mean, I really defer to Christian quite often on quarterbacks if Christian has more to add.
Well, Christian, why don't you talk to us a little bit about these quarterbacks? Who are you taking at 102?
Yeah, so I'll take CJ Stroud and get the first quarterback off the board. He's my QB1 currently. I think he's our consensus one as well. Stroud is just a masterfully accurate quarterback that we've seen him work very well within a pocket. I think that there are questions about what he can do outside of structure and off platform and things like that. And I think those questions, as we get through some of these other quarterbacks, there are questions around all the quarterbacks, like Jeff said. So I think that's why you take the safer, high upside pick in Bijan Robinson. But here at 102, I'm very comfortable starting the quarterback trend here.
Now, you said starting a quarterback trend. So, Kevin, that puts you on the clock at 103. Are you following the trend here?
Yeah, I'll follow the trend. I'll take Bryce here. I think We talked about it on the tier show last night. Like, this is really the tiers. Like, you're looking at, Bijan there, Stroud and Young. And I think it's just kind of at a landing spot with Stroud and Bryce. Like, I really like Bryce. These guys know that I've been a big Bryce guy. He's still my quarterback one. And I know above both of these guys, I'll take him here. And then you have a tier break. So I think it's really these two top quarterbacks, Stroud, Young, and then Bijan there. And then to your question too about like value and why we're seeing Bijan go 1-on-1, it's just a value game too, because Bijan's in some people's running back one in Dynasty right now. Like they said, yeah, he's the running back one. Whereas Bryce and CJ are kind of getting valued at quarterback 13, 14 in some of the mocks that we've done. So that's just a value game, I think, with the 1-on-1 too. And then you have Bryce, who I think landing spot going to be a top 5 kid. So I'll take him there too.
So let me just throw out the elephant in the room here with Bryce Young. You know, a lot of people are concerned about the size. Is that something that you're putting a whole lot of weight into, or do you think that regardless of size that he's still going to, end up going top 5?
I think as long as he – oh, go ahead, Jeff.
No, it's all you, Kevin.
No, well, for me, I just think as long as he's not under 5'10", like if he's at that level and what he's been able to do from high school all the way through his pedigree at Alabama and against Georgia in those big games that he's played, like I'm all aboard. Like I think he's going to go top 5 just based on positional scarcity.
All right, fair enough. Jeff, back to you. We're doing a 12-team draft here, so going through 24 picks, but with just the 3 of you making picks, you are on the clock with 104.
So Jamir Gibbs is going to be my pick, and this is the one inflection area in the draft because I could talk myself into Jamir Gibbs or Jackson Smith and Jigba. I've got Gibbs right now. I think that he's that second running back in the draft class, and I think he is going to flirt with being a first-round running back, and I do think that means a lot. I think he's excellent in the pass-catching game, and especially in PPR formats, he's going to be an easy choice there. And so that's kind of where I'm sitting with him. You get that immediate production out of the running back as opposed to we don't really know that we have a top tier wide receiver. And so that kind of creates that value difference there.
I just want to pull this up again. I had it up while you were talking a little bit, but this player card that we're looking at right here, this is straight out of the rookie guide. Just a reminder that you can check that out in the description below or download it at footballguys.com/rookie guide. You're going to get a page just like this. You see the scouting report, the strengths, weaknesses, statistics, the relative athletic score that'll get added in time. All of this right now completely free. So be sure to check that out. Now, Christian, we go back to you, and, it wouldn't be a show with Christian Williams without a spicy little pick in here. So who are you taking at 105?
I'm going to go ahead and take Tank Bixby. And Jeff actually queued this up pretty well for me because he mentioned that we're not sure if we have a top tier wide receiver in this class. And Tank Bixby is firmly in that, tier 2-ish, tier 3, right behind Gibbs. And I think that I'm more comfortable taking a running back that I think can handle a large workload that is probably going to get day 2 capital here at the 105. I know Tank Bixby has kind of been up and down throughout his college career and how Devy players view him. But I think the NFL draft community and I think NFL teams are going to be in on Tank.
Yeah, I can't push back there too hard. Kevin, Jeff, this is probably the first time where we've seen the draft get a little bit off track from a lot of the consensus drafts. And Christian, not meaning to put you on the spot by any means, but you guys have put a lot of time in here, and I'll respect your opinion if you want to, zig when others are zagging. What do you guys think about this Tank Bixby pick here? Because that's not something that you're seeing in a lot of other drafts right now.
I think the strength of us working together is that we're not afraid to have our own opinions, and we'll have conversations among the group and where we land, and we didn't all consensusly land in this place, but we all respect Christian's opinion, and if this is Christian's choice, I mean, go for it.
Yeah, and I set you up for that one. I knew how you were going to ask that or answer that one, but had to at least ask the question. So, Kevin, back to you now. Are we finally going to see a wide receiver go off the board here?
Yeah, I'm going to take Jackson Smith and Jigba from Ohio State. And I think if you can get him at that spot, I think that's a good value. I know that there's talk about him in terms of what his weaknesses are, and you can see him on the screen as you're watching the guide. I think there's some long speed concerns. I think the athleticism is going to be interesting to see where he can play. I mean, most people think he's going to just be in the slot. So how does that look? Last year, he didn't look very good. So you're hearing a lot of narratives about him, but overall, I mean, he's produced at every level. And I was high on JSN coming into last year. I said he was going to be the second leading wide receiver on that team with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, and people thought I was crazy, and he was. I mean, he was honestly probably one of the best receivers in that group. So when you're looking at him, people will always do this too. They're going to talk about the Utah game where he had all those yards and how he was playing up against a backup cornerback or a running back towards cornerback, but then they just forget the other 11 games that he showed that he was probably the best wide receiver of that room too. Like, I think the narratives are kind of weird on him. I think that he can step in and get him at the 106. I'm on board there.
There's a lot of bad quarterback play in the college football. There's not a lot of guys that go for 300 yards a game.
No.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a guy where 2 years ago, I think we were all kind of looking at the 2023 draft and people were talking about him being a potential top 5 pick. Is one injured year really enough to scare people away this much? Because now I'm seeing him, falling into the back end of the first round in some of these draft picks. I love the pick there. Kevin, do you think that people are kind of overreacting to this 1 year of injuries?
Yeah, I think that there are legit concerns. Like, I understand like the production stuff and I understand kind of like, where's he going to play and everything there, but there's no other guys that really pop off for me either in the wide receiver class. So really it's going to come down to landing spot. We talked about that anyway. Like, hey, one of these guys is going to get a fun landing spot and you might put him up at one, Addison or Quentin Johnson, these other guys that have come down the pipe, but I still believe in the talent. And I've been a big JSN guy going forward. I think he's going to make some people look dumb if they move past him and we could see some bad draft picks if you let JSN slip this far.
So you just talked about another one of the wide receivers coming up here, Jordan Addison. Jeff, that's who you've got at 107. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about Jordan Addison?
Yeah, Jordan Addison. I think that the nice thing about Jordan Addison is Devonta Smith has really fought the fight for him. That's as you look at this player card, we comped him to Devonta Smith. And if you remember back to the great BMI wars of 2020, 2021, there were a lot of concerns about Devonta Smith's size. But I think that Addison's a natural comp to Devonta Smith. I think they're similar type players. I think he's probably more ideally as a second wide receiver as opposed to being that primary receiver. But I think he's got the ability that he can win vertically, win in the slot. And that's really what I'm looking for at wide receivers. What can you do on the field? Where can we use you? And I think that there are natural comparisons to be made between him and Devonta Smith. And so grabbing him at the 107, that's a little bit higher than we have him in our consensus, because in our consensus, we have another player that will be coming up as the wide receiver 2. But on my personal ranks, I have Addison as the wide receiver 2.
Now, when you talk about those BMI wars, if I recall, it was General Devonta Smith on one side and General Jalen Reagor on the other. Am I remembering that correctly? Is that how that went?
Yeah, I think anytime you have a battle with Jalen Reagor in the NFL, you're probably going to win. But
now, Christian, you are back on the clock with 108. Are you going to keep this wide receiver run going?
No, as tempted as I was, this is too far for Anthony Richardson to slip. And that right now, I think that consensus wise, he's probably going to go as QB4, but from a fantasy football perspective, we have to acknowledge what Anthony Richardson's ceiling is. He as soon as he steps on a field, he has top 12 potential. And while he does have a lot of developing to do as a passer, you see what our comparison is if you're watching the channel right now, and that's Cam Newton. And so a lot of the same concerns with accuracy and things like that, but also an elite athlete that legitimately has MVP potential if he is to hit his ceiling. So here at 108, that's a no-brainer in SuperFlex.
Now, the lazy comp that we've been hearing from a lot of people is Malik Willis, and that is why people are getting scared off by Anthony Richardson. I know you've got a canned answer ready for this one, Christian, so tell us why Anthony Richardson is not Malik Willis.
Oh, there are so many reasons, but one would be that he's 6'4" and an incredible athlete, whereas Malik Willis was 6 foot flat and was getting caught from behind while playing at Liberty sometimes. And so I think that even when you're just talking about their athleticism, Richardson has him there. And then in terms of physical tools and how far along they are in terms of seeing the field, Richardson is so much more advanced, and he was 2 years younger than Willis. So I'm totally out on that comparison. Totally.
All right. I knew you were, but I see it getting thrown around all the time, and I just had to ask you, Christian. Kevin, you're on the clock, 109. Who are you taking?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go Quentin Johnson here. So I'm gonna go just take the wide receiver off the board. And to me, there's a big tier break after this. And so when you're looking at Quentin there, I think you have to grab him. I know there's some question marks about in terms of what his role is going to be. I think some hands questions, in my opinion. I think sometimes he can go up and get it, but sometimes he body catches. He has some drops on his tape. It'll be interesting to see where he goes. But if he's in a vertical passing offense, he's kind of that old school guy, like when we grew up, because we're all, well, Jeff's the oldest, but everybody in this room is pretty old. You're looking at like, that's a prototypical guy, 6'4", 215, going to be a top 10 pick. We don't have that now, but I do think that if he finds in that value, and he's really that last tier here, like that's the guy that you grab before it goes to 110.
Now, the player comp that you had on this card, which I will pull up again for anybody that can't see, Des Bryant. That's a pretty lofty comp there. What is it that you see in Quentin Johnson's game that you see as similar to Des Bryant?
Go ahead, Jeff. You made that player comp.
Well, Christian wrote
That
the
one
article
was-
about the debate.
Oh, go ahead,
That-
Christian.
Everyone's trying to pass the buck. Nobody
Yeah,
wants
yeah,
to take the
yeah.
Des Bryant comp. All right, I see how it is.
No, that one was me. I think the ball skills, in terms of how they can stretch the field vertically and the level of physicality that is there or potentially could be there, are reminiscent of prime Des Bryant. Definitely not the version that we saw towards the end where he couldn't find a job. But the athleticism too, and I think, the Big 12 ties definitely probably play a role in that comp.
Awesome. Now that puts it back to you, Jeff. 110. Who are you taking here?
If you have the 110 in your draft, God bless you right now, because it does feel like there's a big drop off. But I'm going to go with Will Levis, probably the only other quarterback to consider in this 2-round mock draft. And, there are talks that Will Levis might be the number one player off the board in the NFL draft. And whether or not that's smokescreen, whatever it might be, if he is that top 5 pick, you almost just have to take him here just because of how much of a teardrop it is at most any other position.
All right. Christian, you are on with 111. Who are you taking here?
Yeah, I can't get away from these spicy picks, but I'm taking Taija Spears here. Taija is my RB4 personally. This is not in line with our consensus, but Taija 5'9", over 200 pounds at the Senior Bowl, which I think was a big thing, and just a very refined runner. You see a guy that size and you think, well, he must be a good pass catcher. He is, but also he's got really good contact balance. He works between the tackles a lot better than you'd expect. I think the NFL is going to really like him too. The comp for us was James Cook, and I think that we saw what the NFL thought about James Cook last year. So I think Taija is better, more advanced at his age than what James Cook was as well. So
now, do you have any ideas of where Spears might be getting drafted? Because we keep hearing a lot about how deep this running back class is. Do you think that he ends up with day 2 draft capital, or do you think that he can slide a little bit further than that?
I think he's going to go day 2 because of his faceted skill set where he can contribute in the passing game. I think teams are looking for guys like that, especially now.
So you guys talk about the tier break after 110. Would you say if you're sitting at this back end of the first round, is this when you just kind of load up on a lot of these running backs in hopes that one of them is going to hit?
Yeah.
All right.
That's the play. But also I will say this, like if you're sitting here at this 10, I have the pick anyway, but at this 10, 11, 12, and you need a quarterback, this might be a time to ship one of these picks for like a Russell Wilson. Shout out Joe Bryant. Some of these other guys out there that you might want to grab in your leagues, in dynasty leagues, in your SuperFlex leagues, because you might. I see that there is a tier break, and maybe a team that's not very good has one of these dynasty quarterbacks that they're maybe dying on their roster. Kirk Cousins, these guys, and they're not very good, but they want Will Levis. He's sitting there. You might be able to kind of get some value there and go get an older prospect.
Yeah, that's a great perspective there. Well, you're on the clock, and you cannot trade this pick. So who are you picking at 112?
Yeah, I'll take Zach Charbonnet, running back at UCLA. I think that he's going to get some draft capital that people don't necessarily expect because just of the runner he is. He came back, and I thought it was a mistake at the time, but where he's kind of getting projected right now, he's got 2nd, 3rd round draft capital, and I like that. A powerful runner, one cut, going to get up into the zone. He does really good in the red zone, so he's going to be that red zone guy. You saw him at 14 touchdowns this last year, 13 before that. Like he's a bruiser, so you're looking at that, and you see AJ Dillon as a comp, and I think that fits perfectly with what he can do. Not a ton of pass catching. He can maybe do it a little bit, dump offs, those type of things. But overall, like I think he'll get fun draft capital, and he's been going as like running back 3 in some drafts that we've been doing with that expectation that he gets 2nd or 3rd round draft capital. If Miami, one of these other teams goes after him, I think he could get jumped up here. So I think it's pretty good value at the 112.
Now, how much are you weighing landing spot? Obviously, everybody keeps talking about how great it is going to be if Miami drafts or if Buffalo drafts. But we saw last year, arguably the 2 best rookie running backs were also projected to be good running backs. But, nobody thought that the Jets were a good landing spot at the time. Nobody thought the Seahawks were a good landing spot at the time. And they both smashed. So are you confident enough in the talent with Zach Charbonnet that even if he doesn't have a perfect landing spot, that you're still willing to take him this high? Or could you see pushing him down a little bit?
The only 2 guys that I'd be comfortable with that, like I was last year with Walker and Hall, would be Bijan and Gibbs, in my opinion. Like, okay, I'll take the talent. I don't care where they go. I think after that, there are some question marks in terms of like scheme fit. And I think scheme fit's always important to kind of see. That's why we put on the guide, the scheme fit. And as we get into it, the third edition, we'll be able to tell you guys what we think about that. But no, I to your point, no, I like this next guy that's going to go right after that, like based on talent, maybe that would be the pick, right? This is just baked into draft capital there. But yeah, no, I think you take it into account with these guys. Anybody after Gibbs and Bijan, I think you have to take that into account.
So we got one more running back coming up here that Jeff's going to be taking at 201, and then we'll play a little game here where I want you to kind of work last year's rookies into where these guys would fit as prospects. So you guys can think through that. Well, Jeff, you tell us who you're taking at 201 here.
Yeah, I'm a sucker. I'm going to take Zach Evans. I just can't quit Zach Evans. I think he's the second most talented running back in the class. I think he's also going to be a 4th-round pick, so I don't think he's going to get that precious day 2 capital. But on talent alone, upside, I do think he's the second best back in this class. And he came in. He was as you can see, his recruiting. That's another thing that we've got in this guide here. His recruiting. He was in Bijan Robinson's class, and he was the number 2 running back in that class. 5-star recruit. He had a kind of a winding tale through his recruiting process, through his college career, and he didn't quite deliver everything that you would have loved to see. But again, I just think talent-wise, upside, position of draft, I'm going to make this pick every time.
So we're getting to this point where we're seeing a lot of, and I think this ends the running back, but through the first 13 picks here, almost half of them have been running backs now. So obviously I think Breece Hall falls in between Bijan and Gibbs, but where would you guys have slotted Ken Walker as a prospect on this draft board right now? I mean, is he, we keep hearing about how this is a pretty top heavy draft. Does he fit in with this run of running backs that just got selected at the back end, or is he more in the Gibbs and Bixby tier for you guys?
He would definitely be above Bixby. I think I'd put him, he's even with Gibbs. I think in the same tier as Gibbs. I think full PPR format, you probably give it to Gibbs a little bit, and any sort of other format, you give it to Walker.
All right. Well, we're on to Christian now with 202. Christian, who are you taking here? Is it going to be another running back?
No, I'm going to break that trend a bit and go with Josh Downs, the receiver from North Carolina. This is a kid that I've been on for a while. I think that his upside is much more than even what he showed at North Carolina. He worked in the slot quite a bit in 2021, moved to the outside in 2022, and kind of showed that he can win from the outside. We've got a Brandon Cooks comp on him. I think that he's like somewhere near Brandon Cooks. Darnell Mooney comes to mind as well as a play style type of comp. And then, I just think that if he ends up in the slot, he's a high PPR type of guy. You asked us to think about where he would slot in. I think like the Jahan Dotson, Christian Watson range of drafts last year is kind of where I'd be comfortable, which is right in line with where Downs fell in this one.
Awesome. All right, Kevin, you are on with 203.
Yeah, similar to Jeff, I can't quit this guy, Keisha Booty, wide receiver from LSU. And I think in the second round though, considering that a lot of people have them as their wide receiver 1 heading into the year, or wide receiver 2, depending on who you ask. I think he's explosive. I think he can dominate. Like you saw stretches where, wow, he came out. He had that injury, obviously knocked him out 2021. 2022 was up and down year, bad quarterback play, bad coaching. There's a lot of things that you could say, like a lot of excuses to make, but he didn't get it done. So there is that. But I think from like a talent standpoint, I mean, he's the second riskiest player in this class, besides Anthony Richardson. I think that just the off-field stuff. I think on-field he's there. We don't know what that injury was yet. We still haven't figured it out. Like it's a lower leg injury, so we don't know. Essentially, I'm hoping during the medical stuff that'll come out. So maybe he was just, last year in terms of why the production wasn't there, he was just recovering. And then he was kind of easing his way into it. I think he can play. I think he can play slot on the outside. I know that he's going to be determined as a slot guy, but I do think that he's physical enough to kind of win in those battles. And I would love to see him go someplace where he may not be the guy. So if he goes to a place where he can be that second option, I think he could thrive.
Yeah, and he was a guy, like you said, a lot of people had him and JSN. It seemed like they were the 1 and 2 of this draft class when we were looking at it a year ago. JSN didn't play much this year, and he is still going now in the top half of the first round of a lot of drafts. Do you think Booty would be going a little bit higher if he didn't play this year and had he just sat out for the injury? Do you think that he really negatively impacted his draft stock by coming back this season?
We're laughing because Jeff said that and he got canceled on Twitter. Yes. 100%. He would he'd be a top 6 guy in this draft. Like he'd probably be wide receiver 1, to be honest with you. Like I think people would be like, oh yeah, look at his value. He was wide receiver 1 when we went out with the injury. Hey, he's fine. He's back. He's Jamar Chase. We would have heard all that. Now where it's like, oh, he's bad. He's not there. And Jeff did hit that one. Jeff said it last, going into the offseason, like, hey, you shouldn't play another snap and get the money and do that stuff. And then, that didn't happen.
Well, I don't know if you guys have been reading the comments so far, but our good friend Corey Spala has been pining in the comments for this next pick. So, Jeff, you're on the clock, and just make Corey happy here, and please select his guy.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the number 1 tight end in the class. I'm going to go with Corey's guy. Dalton Kincaid is my pick here. My number 1 tight end for fantasy purposes. I know most are going to have Michael Mayer as their number 1 tight end, but I think that when you look at fantasy, you look at what Dalton Kincaid's role is going to be. He is a natural pass catcher. You can work him out. You can work him in line. You can work him through the slot, even outside. I think he's going to step right in and be a secondary option as a tight end and be I think he's going to be a first round pick, and the range of where he's going to land in the first round, I think he's going to be tied to an elite quarterback, and that's really going to kind of boost that stock to the moon, I think.
So do you think, do you think he's the first tight end that gets drafted in this class, or is it more from a fantasy perspective because he has that receiving profile? Do you just like him a little bit more than Michael Mayer, but do you expect him to get drafted ahead of Mayer in the draft?
I expect Michael Mayer to be the first tight end taken in the draft, but I think that Kincaid is a better fantasy play. And much like, I think Mayer is in a little bit more of that natural tight end mold. We saw TJ Hawkinson obviously explode this year in times, but early on, he was kind of more used less in the passing game, more in the run game. And I think that Mayer projects that way, whereas I think Kincaid is a more explosive receiving option of a weapon. And I think that's an important distinction to make. We're not playing at being real life GM. We're playing fantasy football. And that's where I have Kincaid ranked higher than Mayer.
Very important distinction to make. Now, before we go to this next one, I just want to show one more time how slick these player cards are from this rookie guide. So link is in the description if you want to download this for free. We have 120 rookie prospects in here right now. Footballguys.com/rookie guide. Be sure to download that today. Back to you, Christian, though. 205, who are you taking here?
I'm going to bring the running back trend back and take Eric Gray. This is a guy that I've been on for quite a while. I think that in terms of what he needed to get better at, that's exactly what he did this last year at Oklahoma. Incredibly productive, over 1,300 yards, but the burst, the pass catching ability, the build is there for him. And ultimately, I think Gray is going to get 3rd to 4th round capital. And even if he falls to the 4th, that's one of those guys that I'm like, this is a good range for a player like that. So
now with the smaller build, are you projecting this guy to be more of just a satellite back, just kind of working in the passing game? Or do you think that he can do stuff between the tackles as well?
I think he can do stuff between the tackles. I think he's got the burst to kind of make some of the between the tackle stuff more obsolete, because I think that he's on you quickly. He's got decent contact balance. I think he's much better in space. He's shifty, but he's just a runner that I like, and he will catch passes too. So
all right, Kevin, we're back to you, and we got another tight end here. Talk to us about why you are taking Michael Mayer here.
Yeah, I'll take Michael Mayer. This is probably appropriate value for him, I think. He's been going around this area, 206. I don't think he's a bad prospect. I think he's a very, very good tight end, a solid tight end. I do think I kind of agree. I mean, Mayer's still my tight end 1, but Kincaid might be a better fantasy asset, so I don't disagree with Jeff there. I tend to agree there. But I think at this point, you're looking at the tight end position. He's currently getting valued as tight end 5 overall in Dynasty, which may be a little high. That's probably is high, but if you look at that from a value perspective, like with the tight end landscape, it's a good value play here. So that's really where I went. Like, I think he can land anywhere and be a guy. I need my tight ends to go to a spot where they're the number 2 target getter on a roster. So if he goes someplace where he's going to be the number 2 target getter, I'm all aboard. Like, I think he'll get shot up a little bit higher than this. So that would be where I look him in the red zone. Like, he does that good 50-50 balls, skills going up there. He's one of the best blockers in the class. Like, he's just a very solid prospect.
So what do we think about Cincinnati? Because I've seen tons of mocks putting Mayer in Cincinnati. They got the late 1st round pick, and he's obviously not going to be the number 2 pass catcher there. I don't think that Mayer comes in and usurps either Jamar Chase or T. Higgins, but that is a high-powered offense. Do you look at that as a good or bad potential landing spot?
For me, it'd be like an UG, like, okay, like, all right.
Neutral.
I think I would limit his ceiling. Like, I think that when you're looking at it, you'd be like, oh, well, there'd be some games where he goes 588 and a touchdown, and then maybe some 220 and no touchdown game kind of games because Higgins or Chase and those guys go off, depending what that running back room looks like. If Boyd is still there, like, that would be for me, like, from a fantasy perspective, that would just lower his ceiling overall until whatever they move on. Like, I would really like him just go to a roster where he's the second guy, because then you're like, okay, I know the guaranteed target's gonna be there in a position that is hard to really look at and just understand where the value is going to be in fantasy. We know about it all the time. Like, look at Evan Ingram all of a sudden, right? Like, it's just a hard thing to project. So I like, if I'm going to make this pick, I want to be able to project it knowing that I know he's probably going to be the second target, so I know where to project him in my lineup.
All right. Jeff, we are back to you with the 207 to round out the second half of the second round.
So my selection is Devin Achane, and Devin Achane is an explosive player. He might be the fastest player overall in the draft, and he's running back, and people are concerned about his smaller size, and he's never going to be a guy that handles 20, 25 touches a game. But at the same time, as we are moving more into a committee landscape, I'm looking more for backs through depth that can make that one big play, that can score from 45 yards away and give me 12 points on one play. And then can I snowball another 4 or 5 points and give me a good tight end or good running back 1 week? And I think that Achane is going to be that type of player. I think he's going to be in that 10 to 12 to 15 touches per game range. But he has that ability to just one play is all he's going to need to be a great start for you that week. And so as we are moving towards the back half of the second round, I think that there's a chance that he is going to be, I fully expect him to be a day 2 running back because of his explosion and the athleticism. And so anytime I can grab a day 2 running back in the back half of the second round, I'm going to go ahead and make that pick.
Yeah, and there's no such thing as a sure thing once you get to this point of your rookie draft. So you're swinging for pure upside, and the upside is absolutely there with him. Christian, 208, who are you taking here?
Yeah, I'm going to roll with Zay Flowers. He might be the highest drafted East-West Shrine participant in a long time, but he wasn't at the Senior Bowl. He ended up at the East-West Shrine Bowl. Very good player in terms of yards after the catch. He's a really good athlete, and he refined his route running. He went back as a senior. A lot of people thought that was a bad move, and then he posted a really efficient year. His yards per reception came down because he was used a lot more. And he did that with some subpar quarterback play with Boston College, and that's putting it nicely. And I mean, we have first to second round as the projection. I'm leaning more first. This wide receiver class has a lot of question marks. He seems like a sure thing that some team at the back of the first is going to like. And I just picture Zay Flowers ending up in Buffalo with Josh Allen and say, yeah, that's a guy I'd love to get at 208.
Yeah, and I mean, they're not, I don't want to compare Stephon Diggs to Zay Flowers, but they do play somewhat of a similar game, right? Where if Stephon Diggs, he's getting up there in age. Jeff, what is he now, 29? Or maybe going on 30? Yeah, so I mean, we're going to have happening at some point because Josh Allen's career is going to outlive Stephon Diggs. So they're going to have to start making a move after seeing this year that Gabe Davis probably can't be that guy to step up as the wide receiver 1. All right, back to you, Kevin, with 209. Who are you taking here?
Yeah, I'll take Jalen Hyatt, wide receiver out of Tennessee. I think collectively we all think, well, some of us a little higher than others, but he could get first round draft capital. Like, so when you're looking at it, like elite level speed, like if you're thinking of this, it's speed downfield. Like that's what he's going to do. Run after the catch, he does that. He's very limited though. Like I would say his route tree is very limited. And when you watch his all 22, like I've watched, like a lot of it's just broken slants to touchdown because he can do it for 80 yards, or just deep balls in that vertical Tennessee offense with Hendon Hooker just throwing him deep balls. And that's really what it looked like. I will say the one thing that he did was like, hey, when Cedric Tillman wasn't there, he took advantage. And when Cedric Tillman came back, he did look like the best Tennessee wide receiver. So that is one good positive. Like I talked about last night on our show, it really, to me, it comes down to just where does he go? Does he go to a quarterback that can get him the ball deep? Like, does he go to that guy that says, hey, I can get it to you on the numbers and I can get it to you deep? And I think that if he does that, then I'm all aboard. I think he's going to get a little higher because I think he's going to go probably, I mean, some people have as their wide receiver 1, some draft pundits. So if he does that and he goes in the first round, then yeah, he'll go higher than 209.
Yeah, we saw Lance Zierlein just mocked him at 12th overall, which would be that immediately shoots him upwards in these rookie drafts. And I think it just comes down to speed. I mean, we see this all the time where some combine darling ends up blowing it up and moving up draft boards. And if he runs 4.3 speed, he might not make it past the Raiders at 7. Jeff, you are on the clock now, and I'm cheating a little bit. I know who you're picking. I am not a college football guy the way that you are, but I like to have college football on Saturdays, just watching it kind of in the background as I'm doing things around the house. And it seemed like this guy was catching my eye every single week, making some sort of spectacular play. Tell me why you're taking Kendre Miller here.
Dave, sometimes you got to return a favor, and sometimes you got to set things up for the host a little bit, and you got to give that host a little bit of a minute to get his guy in there. And so Kendre Miller is your opportunity there.
Oh, I don't really have too much to say. I mean, you can cover this much better than I can. I just see a guy who has explosive speed, and I should say explosive burst. He doesn't have that long speed to rip off the big plays, but I've seen him make some acrobatic catches out of the backfield, breaking tackles when it looks like he's completely bottled up, whether it's in between the tackles or out in space. I just really like the way he moves. Like I said, I'm not a scout by any means, but I would see a really fun play, and then I'd rewind it, and it just seemed like it was Kendre Miller more than almost anybody else. Again, being TCU, they had a lot of games that were just televised, so that's why I caught more of him than a lot of other guys. But he seems like a really fun prospect.
You absolutely crushed it, Dave. Good job.
Thank you. All right, now we are on with 211. And Christian, who are you taking here?
I'm going to roll with Kenny McIntosh, the running back from Georgia. Really good athlete. Comes in as a guy that didn't get a whole lot of run because we know what the Georgia running back room always is, but he really led that unit this year. And in terms of his skill set, he's a very, very good pass catcher. They lined him up out wide, and he could win from the slot. There are a lot of things that he does well that I think translate. Kenny McIntosh probably is going to be one of the first 2 to 3 senior running backs off the board. We do have him projected 3rd to 4th round. I think there's a shot that he falls to day 3. I'd like him a little less in that instance, and I might have pivoted to a wide receiver here. But in this instance, we'll say that he's a 3rd round pick and goes to a team that's going to utilize their running backs as a pass catcher.
And that leaves us with the final pick. Kevin, who are you taking here to round out round 2?
Yeah, I would like to everybody know this was not my pick, but I got overruled. So this is Sean Tucker, running back from Syracuse. Now, so Sean's one of those guys that collectively we've all kind of been kind of down on a little bit. I know the draft circles are kind of down on him in terms of like what he's gonna be. I think patience is there in terms of his weaknesses. You can see it on there. Contact balance. Like I don't know. He's not necessarily a good pass catcher. I know Jeff had a good tweet out there today where his pass production coming from. And I think there's a lot of question marks about him as a prospect. And I think a lot of people, like I saw him go at 105 in some real drafts earlier on in the offseason. And like, that's way too high in terms of what Sean Tucker is going to be. There is talk that he might fall out of the day 2 draft capital. If that's the case, now you're really worried. And I think the other thing to note about him is like, he took some time to like make his decision. So I don't know necessarily what his draft grade or what he was told. And maybe he was really kind of conflicted there. And so if that's the case, then I'd be a little bit worried if you're a Sean Tucker fan.
So you said this wasn't your pick. Who are some other guys that you might think just completely putting you on the spot here, Kevin? And I'm sorry to do that, but who are some other guys that you'd possibly be looking at this point in the draft?
Marvin Mims, Oklahoma wide receiver. I think that he's going to have some pretty fun production. I think that he could find a spot as a slot guy, and he's a deep guy. I think it's like 66%. It was in the 60% is when we did his analytical breakdown. All come up passes are 18 yards or more. So you're talking big play kid. Even Israel Bonaconda from Pittsburgh, running back. I mean, someone had him in the top 4. I don't know who it was, Zerloin or somebody. So it's one of the big draft planets have him in there. And I think he has good speed. He's athletic. He has those areas. So like maybe one of those guys, but that's definitely going to come down to draft capital. Like that's number one. Like if at this point in the draft, you're just looking there and you're going to play somebody there a landing spot. But I think it's okay to be concerned about Tucker a little bit right now.
Awesome. Well, that'll do it, guys. You made my job easy. I just got to sit back here and direct today. Well, you guys did all of the legwork, but I want to remind everybody that's watching that if you have not already, be sure to 1, subscribe at youtube.com/footballguys to check out all the video content we got coming your way. 2, give us a thumbs up so some other people can find this video. And 3, download our free 2023 rookie draft guide, footballguys.com/rookie guide. You can find that link in the description below. Be sure to follow all 3 of these guys, Jeff, Christian, and Kevin, on Twitter, where they are just putting out nonstop content. If it's not at Footballguys, you know, you can find it directly on their feed as well. We got articles, videos, you name it. These are 3 of the hardest working guys in the business that are going to help prepare you for your Dynasty draft season. So I'm Dave Kluge, Jeff Bell, Christian Williams, and Kevin Coleman. We will see you guys another time. Thank you.